I talk to other content creators, but like they don't ask me this stuff. They're just like, how do I it's you? I'm usually like damage control. It's like, how do I fix this thing? How do I? And I'm like,
how do I keep my brand from dying? Help. An important thing about doing really anything in the content space is understanding, does this person actually know what it is that we're talking about here? And I think like the two of us kind of have a pretty solid standing. Headache and I have been making content pretty much since like 2020. I started a little bit more towards the start of 2020. We operate in like 2 different genres in the gaming community. We're both super active YouTube creators, one of us a little bit more than the other, and we're also very active streamers. I felt like it would be pretty interesting to like get our kind of perspectives on content creation based on where we both are at in our respective journeys, which are relatively young compared to like the grand scheme of a like content creators or social media person's career lifespan. And I felt like it would be interesting to kind of get our thoughts on a couple of different topics within the space.
So which one of these do you want to elaborate more on? And we talked about the batching of the content and stuff.
We also talked about how we like don't get sleep. It's kind of casually at the beginning.
But I don't sleep at all. I'm one of those people, I'm like pin drops, I'm awake. Like it starts getting progressively worse and worse. But,
it does.
You know, that's what coffee and energy drinks are for.
Yeah, this video totally not sponsored by my partners at Grinding Coffee Co. Because
there you go.
Yeah.
Do you want to start the brand conversation then?
I probably should since I did that. So one of the areas where Headache and I kind of differ is that I have like a pretty kind of interesting history with working with larger brands and different people in the business space. One of the things that is especially prevalent in the FGC and is also kind of prevalent with like streaming as well, it's just like the hustle to get brand deals, to work with brands, to try and like get sponsored products for like reviews and such. I kind of want to really briefly kind of touch on some of those things that I've like kind of met in my experience that have helped me make myself a lot more approachable for brands, to like kind of help me to like negotiate what it is that I can do for them, negotiate my worth and whatnot. Whenever it comes to making yourself marketable for brands, think of like working with a brand kind of like dating. When you're considering dating someone, you really want to ask yourself, is this someone that I would want to show to my friends and to my family? Because that's basically what every single brand is looking at you in like that general context.
Exactly.
Because brands want to work with people that represent like their overall image, that represent their overall demographic. Because when a brand works with you, they want not necessarily you, but they also really want access to your general audience, because maybe it's a demographic that they're not entirely like present in, but you fit within their image, so they want to reach to your audience so that way they can sell their products. A lot of people really think that it's purely focused on numbers, but there are a lot of metrics that brands tend to look at, and it's not just base follower accounts. If you can look at me compared to like some like the upper echelon of people in my current content creation team, and I am on like the relatively lower end as far as like overall like followers and whatnot, but not only do I excel in just like my general niche in the gaming community, because I focus primarily on fighting game content, but also the fighting game community is a very engaged community. That's like a thing you'll notice across like the entire spectrum of fighting games, is that we have very low impressions in viewership, but the audience that we do have is super engaged and super tuned in to virtually everything that they do. And
that's my homie over there, you know, like that's not just a content creator, that's my dude. You know,
this guy went to my local.
Yeah, exactly.
Like you could have like someone with like 10,000 followers, and then like 1% of them engages with what they do. And then you could also conversely have someone with half as many followers, and if even like 3% of that smaller creator's audience is engaging with what they do, that is immensely more valuable. Like it is objectively more valuable to that brand to work with that smaller creator than it is to work with the larger one, despite what you might think with just like their general followership count would indicate.
Yeah, who's actually buying the stuff?
Yes.
You know, like is it just gonna sit there right below your Twitch stream and the like about you page and nobody clicks on it?
Yep.
Or are people actually clicking and buying the stuff? You know, because like if you only have like like 15 to 30 people, but 20 people out of your 15 to 30 people buy that.
Yep.
That may be more than the guy who has 100 views, but his people don't care.
Yep.
You know, and then only like 5 people buy the product that you're shipping, you know?
Having like 10,000 people looking at your stuff doesn't matter if they aren't buying the stuff. That kind of defeats the purpose.
Yep. It literally doesn't. It really doesn't.
There's a really good book by a digital marketer named Brittany Hennessy, I believe is her last name. And in that book, I believe it's called Influencer. You want to try and aim for an engagement rate that's like somewhere around like at the low end 1.5% of your audience to like 3% and up. I'm currently hovering around like 2.7% engagement.
My 3 month, which is what you asked me about, is 5.3.
Yep. On a live stream platform like Twitch, you're looking a little bit more at average concurrent viewers. YouTube, you're looking more so at retention time. How much of the video overall are they watching is essentially what you're looking for on YouTube. Aim for those numbers. You want to focus on having not just an audience, you want an engaged audience.
Yeah, and that's what we were talking about earlier. Is like I'm looking at like my more like popular like the tweets that were getting a lot of engagement are the graphics, which are like my advertisements for the community poll games.
Yep.
Because like, you know, they were very invested all week because
Yep.
they just want to see which one wins, and then I make a graphic to like blow off the reveal of what won. So that always does well. And always the cats one did well because that was a joke.
It's always the cats. Never forget you're working on the internet.
And the third one, which is really good because I want to bring this up since we're this like content creator focused, is like questions that are very, very relevant to your community. Like I'm asking like, how would you change the most powerful perk in the game is one of my tweets. And that has a super high engagement. Like you got to ask questions, like you just do.
Yep.
Like you gotta even if I don't watch you, I play this game, and that perk frustrates me, you know.
Yep.
So like you have a horse in this race, you know.
Yep.
Then you put that in your titles of your YouTube, you put it in the titles of your Twitch, like you put it in tweets. Like if you know people in your community have a horse in that race, invite their horse to the race.
Yep. Yep.
And it gets you a lot of engagement.
That like encourages like direct user feedback, not just like likes, retweets, shares, that sort of thing. But it also encourages people commenting, and some social media platforms actually weigh comments as like a much higher value level of engagement than like really anything else, because like engagement is all measured in terms of like relative value to each other. Like a like is okay, a comment is better than a like generally speaking, but a share and a retweet, that's almost what you really want to go for, because then that allows it to spread from not just one person but like that entire group's audience, and then it can then be shared off exponentially between their respective audiences, and that's how you essentially blow up on social media. You create content that encourages people to share it with other people.
Dude, I can't tell you how many people I have found because like my friend retweeted their friend, and I'm like, I like my friend, so you're my friend now too. Literally. So that does work. It really does.
That's just the name of the game. If you're a Twitch streamer and you have like a pretty popular clip that you think people might end up wanting to share with people because maybe it's funny or maybe it's just like pretty freaking sick, that's potentially like super shareable content. Informative guide content is potentially like super shareable, especially if it's like extremely bite-sized.
Yeah, that's why I like TikTok, because it's just like, you know, you just scroll through the day and you're like, wow, that was a cool combo, or hey, that was a cool shot, cool. And you move on with your day. It's nice.
Nice. There are also like a couple of general things you can do to try and be marketable to brands. Like, first of all, it is about like being yourself and being in line with the brand's general image. That is like a pretty core part of it. But there are also like some pretty general hard rules where even if these are like in some way, shape, or form a part of your personality, if you want to work with another brand, you might want to think a little bit more closely about how you approach these things. So some things that might turn some brands away from you, foul language, if they're like not like a super mature brand and they're targeting people at like relatively younger ages, you might want to keep the swearing and stuff to a minimum. I know like some brands, especially those like really tied in with like competitive fields like esports and whatnot, are typically fine with like some amount of trash talk as long as it doesn't go over like a super far line, like you're not like saying like something super like offensive to like their character or image, or if you're saying like a slur or something like that.
It sounds dumb, but being a good person is marketable.
Yes, be good, be nice to people. That actually can work.
Wow.
In general, I tend to avoid things that relate to extremely touchy subjects that people have like a lot of personal weight in. The big two are politics and religion. You generally don't want to touch those unless it's like that is your brand. You don't want to touch those.
That's why it's almost every Twitch streamer you'll look down and it says like no politics, no religion talk, no safe for life talk.
Yep.
Yeah, because it's just like you don't want people getting like, once again, like if you're like, if that brand's sitting there and it's trying to like, you know, it just, all it wants you to do is buy coffee, and everybody's like arguing in the chat, that's the first thing you see. You're like, that's your rep coffee company, is this guy who's like propagating this like super heated and emotionally unhealthy discussion.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a good rep. Yep,
that's fine. Seems good. And then there's, well, this one primarily applies to women, and this one is also not necessarily a deal breaker, kind of like foul language isn't necessarily a deal breaker. But not safe for work content has like a pretty interesting history as far as like relationship with other brands go, because not safe for work content really it exists on like a spectrum in terms of like what brands will work with you. If you don't do it, then pretty much every single brand, as long as you fit like all their other criteria, they will work with you. If you do some not safe for work stuff, especially if they're like targeting like relatively younger demographics, then they'll be substantially more hesitant if you do anything that's kind of like but if you're doing like full not safe for work, then that basically eliminates you almost entirely from really just like any brand in general.
Yep. Even TikTok like shadow bans you now if you do stuff like that. Like even like the place where that was like thirst trapping was like at its like highest in terms of like being like an okay and valued thing. Like they start shadow banning those people now.
Yep. So there is a pretty like large element of really managing your image whenever it comes to being a creator, especially whenever it comes to working with other businesses. So if you guys have enjoyed this discussion, you can of course always follow me just by clicking on the subscribe button right here. Be sure to like, comment. If you have any opinions about some of the stuff that we've talked about, be sure to leave that down there as well. Also make sure to check out my homie Headache's channel. You can find that right here. You just click on the little doobly-doo thing on screen. Much like myself, he does a lot of stuff in the content creation space with a really big focus on Dead by Daylight and various different horror games. So if that sounds like something you might be interested in, be sure to check out his channel as well. Thank you guys very much for watching. I've been ShaolinPretzels, joined by Headache, and we'll see you in our respective videos.